Welcome back to BYU Sports Nation in Studio B. Jeremy Jordan alongside Dave McCann. Let's now bring in Steve Cleveland to offer some perspective on what happened with coaches this week. Not to mention, he's the guy that brought Juddy to BYU in the first place. Cleve, how you doing, man?
Good, guys. Good to talk.
Good to talk. Long time no talk. So let's talk about Jeff Judkins, obviously retiring yesterday. We thought that maybe this would happen after this season or in the next couple of years, but when it happens, it's still shocking. It's like, oh my gosh, Juddy's reign of awesomeness is over with BYU. Tell us about the origins of getting Juddy to BYU.
You know, it's kind of a unique situation because I knew Juddy a little bit, but it kind of all started with a phone call that I received from him one evening, kind of late in the evening, and it was I think it was early 2000. He was at Utah and maybe 99 actually, as I think about it. But anyway, he was at Utah and he called me and he said, "Hey, Coach, I know we don't know each other that well, but I said, I love what you guys are doing." And he said, I need, it's just time for me to leave Utah. And it would shock me because they had, you know, we had been climbing that mountain and competing against them, but recruiting against them. And it was a difficult time to come in for rebuilding a program when Utah was so powerful and well coached, and Juddy and that whole staff was outstanding. So it kind of caught me off guard. That initiated a few conversations, and over a period of several weeks and a couple of months, what I told him, I said, "I'll do everything I can to try to give you an opportunity here, but I said I don't have any, full-time coaching positions." And I worked with the administration, and we ended up actually creating a position that was a consulting position, not just for the men, but for the men and women. So he had exposure to both programs, and it began a great relationship. And Juddy and I have been good friends for a long time, and I am so happy for what he's done. I figured sooner than later that he was going to retire. Just making that commute back and forth from Salt Lake every day had to get old, but he did special things. He's a great man. I'll tell you, he helped me. I got another perspective, and I think with coaches, you're always looking for opportunities to learn. And we had played Utah enough to know what they were doing, but it was the little things, the preparation for games, the attention to detail, some of those things that I'll always really remember about Juddy. And in terms of helping me personally in that setting. And then we just became good friends. And I've been pulling for him for a long time and really happy and excited about an amazing career and all the good he's done. He's a good person. And I love the fact that he had a culture of really connecting with his players. And I know just from things I've read, they love him. And I've always felt that was an important thing in the programs we had. So we had that in common right from the get-go.
You gave him some good advice after he got here because he'd never coached women's basketball, and there was an opening that developed. And tell us about the conversion of Juddy from the men's game to giving the women's game a try. And then, of course, he stuck with it and has been head coach for 21 years.
You know, it was interesting. One of the most candid things that he asked me as we sat down one day, and he said, "If I take this women's job, do you think that I have an opportunity to get back in and coach with the men?" And I said, "Juddy, I can't tell you that for sure. But if I know you and what you're going to be about, you're going to commit and be all in." And I said, "To be honest with you, this may not be what you want to hear, but I said, I don't think you're going to transition back to the men. I think you've had that experience as an assistant coach and at Utah and here at BYU with us. You've done great things." I said, you got to commit. You got to be all in. You can't be thinking that, hey, down the road in 2 or 3 or 4 months or years that I can jump back into the men's game. And I think he listened to that counsel, and I think that he was all in from that point in time. I didn't want to try to keep his hopes up that he would be a men's coach, whether it was at BYU or wherever, when I knew that if he were really to put his whole heart into this thing, he could have an amazing career with the women, and he has. And I'm not sure if that's what he wanted to hear, but he followed my advice, and I just said, "You need to go for that, Juddy. That this is a great opportunity. You can have a great influence." And he did, and congrats to him and all of his staff members. And he's had some amazing players there.
They've been unbelievable, and they had the greatest regular season in program history last year. 456 wins, 10 NCAA tournaments, 2 Sweet 16s. I mean, not bad for a Ute, right?
Oh, boy. You know what? It doesn't surprise me because he, first of all, he was a great high school player. He was a great college player. He played in the league. He had so many influences in his life and good coaches that helped him. And I think that his time in Utah, I don't think it was always perfect for him in Utah, but some of the things he learned there helped me. And he was mentored by a lot of people in this process. And I think that the most important thing about Juddy is his ability to communicate and motivate young people to play at a level that maybe even they didn't feel they could play at. And certainly you can't have success unless you can recruit. And hey, he was, when we got to BYU in 1997, you know the circumstances, and it was really difficult to go into homes and to recruit against him and that program. And they were a Final Four team, but we eventually figured it out. And by the time we figured it out, Juddy was still at Utah, but coming in, I always told him, I said, this is the most difficult thing I've ever had to do, is to go into a community, into a state where it was so difficult to recruit early on. But we got a couple key people and it worked out. And certainly Juddy was involved in our program for about 18 months. And he made great contributions in terms of X's and O's and also obviously in recruiting.
Visiting with the great Steve Cleveland this morning here on this Friday. Coach, how hard is it for a coach to come to the conclusion that his or her coaching days are over and it's time to be done?
It's difficult. I can tell you that right now, just from personal experience. And I didn't remember even my journey as a high school coach for 12 years and not sure what my next step was. And I just felt, so I pursued a junior college job and was very fortunate to get it. And the experience of going to BYU was amazing. And Fresno State was much more difficult because of a lot of the sanctions and things that happened that were made it more challenging. But I can just remember at that time, just talking to my wife and thinking about it and praying about it. But I just knew in my gut that it was time. And that was hard. And you walk away, the thing you walk away from, and the most important thing to me was just being in practice every day. I mean, the games were fun and all the energy and the preparation for them, but really where my heart was, and I know Juddy and most coaches that are in this business for a long time, it's about your relationships. And that's what Juddy was amazing with. And so, when you're walking away from that every day and getting that interaction, there's a void in your life. You've got to fill it with other things. And Juddy will do that, whether it's with his horses or other things that he does. But he'll notice and feel a void next year at this time when the team is going to the NCAA tournament and things are happening, and you kind of long for that feeling. So it's not easy. You do miss it, but you just have a different perspective. And I know that for me, and I'm sure for Juddy as well, when you do kind of step away from it, there is a void in your life.
Little anecdote on Valentine's Day. I went to practice this year. He had brought roses for every one of his girls on the team, the women, and he got really emotional, saying, "Yeah, I love you guys. You guys are super light in my life." And so maybe he knew late in the season, and he offered some perspective, of kind of feeling that maybe this is it, or maybe I have another year or two. But he knew that it was getting near the end. Let's talk about what BYU should look for in this. We talked about it earlier in the show with Kristen as well. Obviously, Lee Comard is a notable candidate currently on the staff. Dan Nielsen was on the staff. He's at UVU as the head coach down the road. Sort of a Mark Pope-like move, potentially, maybe someone outside there. What should BYU look for in a replacement for its all-time winningest coach?
Well, I think first and foremost is having connections and recruiting connections and having the ability. I think all of those people, no matter who they bring in, it's going to be somebody that has experience and that can coach. And in Lee's situation, he's not been a head coach, but he's certainly been around the game for a long time. And other coaches who, the coach at UVU, he's obviously has a program over there. But I think really important to this is recruiting to this institution. The one thing Juddy's done, he's made it really, really okay to come to BYU. I mean, they've had great success. So I don't think it's a big stretch. Hey, take a chance on us. That's not the circumstance. You got a great program. But certainly recruiting is really important. And I have never coached women, but I've been married to my dear wife for a long time. I've got a daughter, and they're raising a daughter and raising a son are two very different things. And so, you know, relationships with players, having that culture and having that trust, you know, the players in that program right now are always going to, whoever comes in, are going to compare them to Juddy a little bit. And that's a difficult thing to measure up to because he's had so much success there. And as you said, whether it's bringing flowers or taking the time when somebody's really struggling and come into your office and help them through whatever issues they have in their life, you can't create that immediately as a new coach. And so you do the very best you can to establish relationships in a culture where there's trust and it's a player-led. The thing I love about Juddy's teams and any coach that's had success is he's had player-led teams. He's had really good leadership in his program, and that makes all the difference in the world. And Juddy's empowered them. So those are character traits. If I'm sitting down in an interview and I'm going to be talking to a candidate, I want to know what they believe in and what they, you know, the things that are important to them. I think X's and O's and wins and losses, certainly experience, I think plays a role. But I think more importantly is how are you going to connect with this team? And how are you going to continue at this level? And what's your recruiting plans? What are you going to do in terms of reaching out? I mean, they're going into the Big 12 too. And last I saw that both those, the men's and women's programs are really difficult. It's got to get to another level. I think one of the things, I was talking to a good friend the other day, whether it's women or men, is that the portal is a wonderful thing. And you can fix problems there. You can fill in spots. But establishing and building a program long-term that's been done by Juddy in a very, very good way, you've got to continue that. You've got to build it and have a foundation. And then whether it's local kids or kids from around the country, it doesn't matter. But you got to have time to develop players. And I think sometimes as I watch the scenery around college basketball, as we've got a lot of one and dones. And it's hard to really develop talent. I understand that you can really fix some immediate problems. But I think long-term for both those programs, they have to be into developing players, developing programs, because they can win. You know, the Big 12 is an ominous thing right now. But if you have 22 and 23-year-old for young men, you know, seniors and juniors, or you have women that have been in the program, that's how you make up for maybe not having the depth or having the talent level, but you have a core group of people that are together, understand the program, what's being done. So I think long-term, that's what I would be looking at if I was an AD or an assistant AD. How are you going to, you know, establish this and getting to the next level? Because there is a significant jump in a year at both with the men and the women.
Speaking of the men, let's say you're back as the head coach and you just lost Chris Burgess to the University of Utah. Who are you going to get to replace him as the men get ready for the Big 12?
Well, I'm going to want someone that has some experience that's recruited, you know, around the country. Now, Mark, you know, the one thing about Mark is he possesses a lot of those character traits. But I think if I don't know what Coach Pope is going to do with, is he going to bring a younger guy in and then bump everybody up? Because these are coaches he's been with for quite a while. But I definitely would want someone that is recognizable, that has experience, that can come in and have an immediate impact, and that they can go into a home. So, you know, I'm not saying that they have to have been an NBA player or won a national championship, but I think it's important that you bring somebody in that can do all the things you expect them to do, but that opening day, when you hire someone, the recognition and knowing that, hey, here's somebody that's been there. They've been a great collegiate athlete. Maybe they've been professional. Maybe they've been involved in different programs. But I do think you need to have some experience here. I think just in preparing for the Big 12, and I know some of the candidates, and I think many of them would be wonderful fits at BYU, but it is something for me that I would want to get somebody that can help me go recruit and be on the road. And I think Chris has been able to do that. And I think that's one of the voids that you need to fill. That's really important immediately, because I think they're going to have the opportunity I'm just speaking about the men that I know a lot more about than maybe the women, though I did watch them play several games. But I think for the men, is having something with a firm foundation you're building and growing and developing. And yes, you'll use the portal for immediate needs, but I think long-term to compete in the Big 12, you've got to develop your guys. And so I'd want a guy also that could help develop bigs or develop guards or be a part of the development part of building a foundation so you could compete in the Big 12.
My pie in the sky hopes are that it's Rick Smits or Dale Davis from the Pacers, former teammates. That ain't happening. We can't pay them enough, but nor is there interest there probably. But no, we'll see who it is. Steve, we appreciate the time, man. Great perspective. Thank you as always.
Thanks, guys.